The morning sun filtered through the blinds, filling the kitchen with a warm golden glow. Emma stood at the counter, her coffee untouched, staring down at the bright red stamped envelope in her trembling hands. I walked in, still buttoning my shirt, and stopped when I saw the look on her face. "What now?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. She turned the envelope toward me. The words "Final Warning" were stamped across the top in bold, screaming letters. "They find us again, Ryan," she said, her voice cracking. $5,000. They said it's for landscaping violations. I took the envelope from her and scanned the letter. Violation, non-compliant landscaping. Immediate action required. Fine, $5,000. A humorless laugh escaped my throat. Our lawn is perfect. I mow it every Saturday. The flower beds are HOA approved, and the driveway is spotless. This isn't about rules, Emma. This is about Karen flexing her imaginary muscles. Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA, had been a thorn in everyone's side since the day we moved into Willow Creek Estates. She was the kind of person who believed the neighborhood belonged to her, clipboard always in hand, ready to jot down infractions like a self-appointed sheriff. Emma sank into a chair, frustration etched in every line of her face. This is the third fine in 2 months. First, they said the mailbox paint was faded. Then it was the unsightly recycling bin by the curb, even though everyone else does it. And now this. I placed my hand over hers. Ignore it. Let her dig her own grave. She doesn't know who she's dealing with. She stared at me, brows furrowed. What are you planning, Ryan? Nothing yet, I said with a calmness that was almost unsettling. But trust me, the law has a funny way of balancing itself out. The day passed in tense silence. Emma busied herself in the garden, pulling weeds that didn't exist, while I reviewed case files in my study. Being a state judge had taught me a few things: patience, strategy, and the importance of timing. And something told me Karen was about to walk herself straight into a storm she couldn't handle. Around 5 in the evening, a sharp, authoritative knock rattled the front door. Emma looked at me, wide-eyed. "It's her," she whispered. I opened the door, and sure enough, there stood Karen, her signature bob haircut perfectly in place, her HOA polo shirt starched and tucked neatly into her khaki pants. She clutched her clipboard like it was a badge of honor. "You have 48 hours to pay the fine," she declared, stepping closer to the doorway as though she owned the property. "Failure to comply will result in legal escalation. You're disrupting the harmony of our community, and I won't allow it." I raised an eyebrow. The harmony of the community. Karen, our yard is immaculate. These fines are baseless. Emma appeared behind me, her hands gripping the edge of the doorframe. "Karen, this is harassment. Stop it." Karen smirked, a look that screamed superiority. "Ignoring HOA notices is itself a violation. I'll be calling the authorities. Maybe a visit from law enforcement will make you take this seriously." She turned on her heel and marched down the driveway, phone already pressed to her ear. Emma closed the door and leaned against it, her breathing uneven. "She can't do this, Ryan. Can she?" I looked out the window, watching Karen pace near her car, waving her arms as she barked into the phone. "No," I said calmly. "She can't. But let her think she can." By nightfall, the distant wail of sirens echoed down the street. Blue and red lights danced against the walls of our living room as a black and white cruiser pulled up in front of our driveway. Emma's hand tightened around my arm. She actually called the cops. I nodded, a quiet smirk tugging at my lips. And now she's about to learn a lesson. 2 officers stepped out of the car, one young, his posture stiff and uncertain, and another older, seasoned, with sharp, calculating eyes. Karen met him halfway down the sidewalk, her voice carrying across the yard. "Officers," she cried, gesturing wildly toward our house. "These people are refusing to comply with community regulations. I demand they be cited and removed if necessary." The younger officer looked hesitant, unsure of how to proceed. But the older one, his gaze locked onto me as I stepped onto the porch. His stride slowed, and then he froze, recognition dawning in an instant. "Judge Matthews," he said, disbelief heavy in his voice. I nodded casually. "Evening, Officer Daniels. How's the family?" Karen blinked, confusion knitting her brows. "Judge, what are you talking about? Is just some homeowner violating the rules." Officer Daniels raised a hand, silencing her mid-sentence. His expression hardened as he turned to her. "Ma'am, do you have any idea whose property you're standing on?" Karen hesitated, her smugness faltering. This is Judge Ryan Matthews," Daniels said, his tone sharp and authoritative. "State judge, and unless you want to be charged with harassment and trespassing, I strongly suggest you step off his property. Right now." The blood drained from Karen's face. She stumbled back a step, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Emma stepped onto the porch beside me, her posture straight, eyes glinting with quiet satisfaction. Karen stammered. I didn't know. That much is obvious, I interrupted smoothly, my voice calm but edged with steel. This conversation is over. You'll leave now. Officer Daniels nodded toward his partner, signaling for them to return to the cruiser. He turned back to me briefly. Sir, would you like us to file a formal report? Not tonight, I said with a polite smile. But we'll be in touch. As the patrol car pulled away, Karen stood frozen in the middle of the street, the weight of her mistake settling in. When she finally turned and scurried back to her car, her usual air of authority was gone, replaced with something far more satisfying, fear. Emma exhaled deeply, leaning into me. She finally realizes who she's dealing with. I wrapped an arm around her shoulders, my gaze fixed on the retreating taillights. Oh, she realizes, I said softly. But this is only the beginning. The morning after the police visit, the neighborhood was eerily quiet. For the first time in months, there were no passive-aggressive HOA notices in our mailbox, no anonymous letters tucked under the doormat, no Karen lurking by the sidewalk, clipboard in hand. Emma brewed coffee while I sat on the patio, flipping through the morning paper. The cool breeze carried the scent of freshly cut grass from our neighbor's yard, a sharp contrast to the tension that had filled the air the night before. You think she's learned her lesson? Emma asked, stepping outside and setting my coffee mug on the table. I chuckled softly. People like Karen don't learn lessons. They regroup, plan their next move, and come back swinging. But she'll be careful now. She knows the stakes. Emma sat beside me, sipping her coffee. It still feels surreal. The way Officer Daniels froze when he recognized you, I think it scared her more than anything else. It should have, I said, folding the paper and setting it aside. Being a judge doesn't make me untouchable, but it does mean I know the law inside and out. She can't bully us the way she bullies everyone else. And now, she knows I'm watching. By mid-afternoon, whispers had spread through the neighborhood. I caught glimpses of blinds twitching, curious faces peering from behind curtains. People waved cautiously when I walked to the curb to collect the mail, their smiles polite but careful, as though they'd just realized there was more to the quiet man in the corner house than they'd assumed. Then, the phone calls started. First, it was Mr. Jenkins from 2 streets over, thanking me for standing up to her. Then Mrs. Alvarez, explaining how Karen fined her $1,000 for having a wreath on her door that wasn't seasonally appropriate. Story after story poured in, harassment, intimidation, outrageous fines, all orchestrated by the same power-hungry HOA president. Emma listened as I ended yet another call. It's worse than I thought, she said softly. I nodded, my jaw tight. She's been terrorizing this neighborhood for years, using the bylaws like weapons. And no one pushed back because they were afraid. But now, I leaned back in my chair, a slow, calculated smile forming. Now they know they have someone who can fight her and win. That evening, I called a meeting. By 7, our living room was filled with neighbors, some nervous, others angry, all tired of living under Karen's iron fist. Mrs. Alvarez clutched a folder of photos showing the violations she'd been fined for, while Mr. Jenkins carried a stack of old letters and threats. I stood at the front of the room, hands clasped loosely in front of me. What Karen's been doing isn't just unethical, I began. In many cases, it's illegal. HOA boards are bound by state statutes, and she's been overstepping her authority for years. But if we're going to stop her, we need to do this the right way, through the law. Murmurs rippled through the group. Someone asked, what does that mean? It means we collect evidence, I explained. Every letter, every fine, every baseless complaint, document it. Then we file a formal complaint with the State Housing Board and, if necessary, take her to court. When we're done, she won't just be removed from the HOA, she'll be liable for damages. The room erupted in quiet agreement, a spark of hope replacing the usual defeat in their eyes. Emma glanced at me from across the room, pride softening her features. She knew I wasn't doing this just for us. This was about justice, for every family Karen had bullied, every homeowner she'd humiliated. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Neighbors stopped by with boxes of documents, emails, and photos. Emma organized everything into binders, her meticulous nature turning chaos into order. I spent hours each night reviewing the material, highlighting patterns of harassment, illegal fines, and blatant abuse of power. Karen, meanwhile, was uncharacteristically silent. She no longer strutted down the street with her clipboard, no longer barked at kids for riding their bikes too close to the curb. But I saw her watching, peering from behind her pristine curtains, eyes sharp and suspicious, like a predator sensing the trap closing in. Then came the inevitable knock on the door. It was late afternoon when I opened it to find Karen standing there, her usual arrogance tempered by forced civility. Judge Matthews, she said, her smile tight and brittle. I think we got off on the wrong foot. Perhaps we could discuss this situation. Over coffee, maybe. No need to escalate things. I leaned casually against the doorframe, studying her. Escalate things. Karen, you called the police on my wife because she ignored a baseless fine. You harassed us. And from what I've gathered, you've been doing the same to half the people in this neighborhood. This isn't about a misunderstanding. This is about accountability. Her face paled. You can't just. I interrupted, my voice calm but firm. And I will. Unless you resign from the HOA presidency immediately, we proceed with the legal complaint. Your choice. For a long moment, she just stood there, speechless. Then, without another word, she turned and walked briskly back to her car. By the weekend, word spread, Karen had resigned. The neighborhood transformed almost overnight. The tension that had hung like a storm cloud over Willow Creek Estates dissipated, replaced with laughter, barbecues, and children playing freely without fear of arbitrary fines. One evening, as Emma and I sat by the pool, watching the sun dip below the horizon, she turned to me with a small smile. You didn't just protect us, she said softly. You gave everyone here their home back. I shrugged, though a sense of quiet pride settled in my chest. Sometimes people just need someone to remind them they have rights. That they don't have to live in fear. Emma leaned her head on my shoulder. And Karen, she'll find another neighborhood to terrorize, I said, my tone light but edged with warning. But not here. Not again. The sound of laughter drifted from across the street, where neighbors had gathered for a block party, a celebration of freedom they hadn't felt in years. And as I watched, a rare sense of peace settled over me. For the first time since moving into Willow Creek Estates, it finally felt like home.